This is the Savage Minnow. It's a paddle tail that sits on a jig head, and I call this, in my head, the J-hook version. The hook is exposed, it's conventional. We do a bunch of different colours, we do a couple of sizes. This is the 12.5 centimetre, and on the packet, that weight, 35 grams, that is the total weight of the soft plastic body together with the jig head. As with all our new lures, we're putting the weight of the actual jig head on the jig head itself. That is the weight of the head, not the whole lure. This whole lure weighs 35 grams together. So just watch it, depending on what rod you're going to use. Don't go thinking this lure weighs 25 grams total. That's the weight of the head, 25 grams. So whatever rods you're using, you can match the total weight of the lure to the casting weight of your rod. As with the other lures, we're doing these 2+1 packs, whereby you get one lure complete and secured, rigged, ready to go. And what we are hoping is that you catch 1,000 good fish on that body. Then you need that spare body, because so many fish have damaged that. Then we're going to rig it with a spare body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that lure apart and put it back together again and show you how easy it is to do. You'll see in a minute when I show you how to rig these things. We're using a system called the Pro Peg Mount, which between you and I is a toothpick. It's incredibly simple, but it's incredibly effective. So when you take these lures out of the packet, do not throw those toothpicks away. They are vital. I'll show you that in a second. For this regular Savage Minnow, there are two components. You've got the soft plastic paddle tail, the lure body, let's call it, and then you've got the jig head to which the J-hook is secured. I'm now going to show you how to rig it, and it could not be simpler. You're going to notice a very visible hole in the middle of the end of the lure body, okay? That is for the hook points. Then on the top of the lure body, there's another kind of almost like a bump, a rise. There's a hole in it. That is where the hook point's going to come out of when you rigged it. So all we're going to do is take that hook into that hole there. I'm going to run it down the body. I'm going to come out exactly at that point on the back of the lure. That second spike there, okay, I want that to go through. There's a tiny little hole there, okay, into that. So that now is basically married up. Squeeze it on. Now that, in some respects, is rigged, but I haven't secured soft plastic body to the jig head. And we're giving you two ways of doing this, with the third way obviously being don't glue it, don't secure it. It's up to you. I always like to secure the body to the jig head. The traditional way is to put a drop of super glue in there, hold it together, squeeze together like that, hold it for a while, then it's secure. My days of glue are over. You don't need glue with these lures, okay? We've got a very clever, simple method involving a toothpick. Grab one of those toothpicks from the packet. By all means, if you want to, clean your teeth. But what I'm going to do is make sure the body of the lure is nudged up against the jig head. Those two holes on the side of the lure, they have a purpose. Take that toothpick and just go like that. And this is where it's really clever, okay? No glue, no sticking my fingers to jig heads when the fishing gets over exciting and I rushing and I go crazy and I stick my fingers together. That toothpick is through those two holes, which marries up on that little bump on the bottom spike. Watch this now. That is as secure as super glue will ever be. But obviously I'm not going to fish with that toothpick at the lure. I'm going to take my pliers, my cutters, whatever it may be. Cut that, keep it for another lure. Cut that, keep it for another lure. That is now rigged. That's going nowhere. What I got here, it goes out shallow for a little way and then it just drops really, really deep. And so, I'm perfectly happy using a J-hook lure, and the Savage Minnow is, it's that paddle tail on a jig head. They swim with an incredibly intense action. We've got the same style of head on the J-hook version as we have on the weedless version. And as well as a paddle tail kicking like crazy, they've got this beautiful kind of subtle roll. But also, look, a J-hook, that exposed hook, you do run the risk of, snagging up if you hit the bottom by mistake. So we've gone with this design of jig head to try and minimize that risk. When the ground gets really rough and I'm working the bottom, I'll use the weedless version. But for straight swimming like this, and straight kind of sink and draw in that deep water, I am more than happy with the J-hook, knowing that the design of jig head will minimize any mistakes. I ram into the bottom, into a really kind of gnarly area, like there, just there, I'm trusting the design of the jig head not only to swim and give me the action I want, but also bump off the snags. But then, if this was, let's say, a sandy, very clear bottom estuary, and the current was pouring out on the last of the ebb, it's just sand, it's mud, it's shale, it's shingle. If there's no rocks around, I will bump that J-hook on the bottom as I would the weedless in snaggy ground. And I call it almost like check nymphing, that style of fishing, from fly fishing. You're using the current to move the lure and do its thing for you. Just look, I'm basically fishing that like a hard lure again. I can feel through the rod tip. I've got the SGS 5, 9 foot, 9 to 35 gram. I can feel the tail thumping on that Savage Minnow. Just bump the edge then. It goes out, out, out and drops seriously deep here. Thank you, Storm. See, I trust the design of the lure. I trust that design of the jig head. That for, this is quite a heavy lure, but I trust that I can actually swim it. I wouldn't call that fast at all. Just bump the bottom then, up and over, up and over, up and over. See, I love it. We did play around in the design process. We played around with your sort of more conventional jig heads, and they work great. I had plenty of fish on them, but I just felt that it was only kind of giving us the one option. It was giving us that swimming option. Whereas obviously I want that kind of strong sink and draw, but I want the ability to really feel like when that lure is bumping the sandy bottom with this jig head, it's working really well. But also, come on, let's be honest, we all make mistakes. We let a lure drop down too deep in some places. I want a chance of getting it back if I'm not fishing a weedless one.